The fourth and final dogma of Mary is the fact of her assumption. In the year 1950, Pope Pius XII, he said this. He said that Mary, after the completion of her earthly life, was assumed body and soul into the glory of heaven. Mary, after the completion of her earthly life, was assumed body and soul into the glory of heaven. No bodily corruption took place. Now, the church did not say in this dogma that Mary died first. The church also did not say Mary was taken up before her death. So the question as to whether Mary died first, then she was taken up, or she was taken up before her death is not answered. Follow? This is the nature of a dogma. It gets as clear as it wants to get. What it's not clear about, it will not say. Okay. The Eastern Christians also believe in this, but it's not formulated as a dogma. They believe in what they call the Domitian of Mary. And they believe that Mary, after Jesus died and rose again, and after the ascension, Mary lived with John. Because Jesus gave John to Mary and Mary to John. Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. Correct? So Mary lived with John and served the apostles. And so, at her deathbed, all the apostles were in different parts of the world doing mission and planting the church. But as she was on the verge of death, all these apostles were miraculously transported into the room in the house of John by Mary's bedside. And then the Assumption took place. That is a belief in the tradition of the Eastern Christians. They call it the Domitian of Mary. Okay? They don't call it the dogma of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So for us, we do not answer the question as to whether Mary died first or not. But we say whatever the case may be, our firm belief is that she was taken up, body and soul, into heaven. So even if she did die first, there was no corruption of her body. Alright? Now, there is no explicit Bible verse that actually talks about this. There is no explicit Bible verse that actually talks about this. But if you look in some scriptural passages, for example, 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 23, the Gospel of Matthew chapter 27 verses 52 to 53, these passages actually talk about a possibility of bodily assumption before the second coming of Christ. Alright? In the Matthew passage that I've just quoted, it says, "And the graves were opened, and many bodies arose out of them." That was when Jesus rose from the dead. Do you know, together with him, the graves were opened, and many bodies arose out of them, bodies of holy men gone to their rest, who after his rising again, left their graves and went into the holy city, where they were seen by many. Do you know that Jesus didn't rise up on his own? There were others who rose up. And these were holy men, it says. And then they went into the city and showed themselves to people. Zombies. There is another evidence for the Assumption of Mary. The evidence is found in the absence of an evidence of her body. Do you know that in history, this is considered legitimate evidence? The technical term for it is negative evidence. When you cannot find an evidence for something, it is a possible evidence that it did not happen. Go look for a relic of Mary. We have relics of the saints, right? We even have relics of St. Thomas's finger, St. Paul's whatever, skull and whatever. Go look for a relic of Mary's body. her hair or her nose, her tooth, whatever. Where? If God, I'll take you for a pilgrimage there. There is no Marian relic. There is no body of Mary in existence anywhere in the world. The earliest reference to this fact, or to this negative proof, negative historical proof, is found in the Council of Chalcedon. It is said that in the Council of Chalcedon, the Emperor Marcion wanted to own the body of Mary. And so in that council, he actually asked for the body of Mary to be given to him. And then Saint Juvenal, the bishop of Jerusalem, got up and answered him this. He said, Mary died in the presence of all the apostles, but her tomb, when opened upon the request of Saint Thomas, was found empty. Wherefrom the apostles concluded that the body was taken up to heaven. So this is a historical document. But again, remember, although this document says that Mary died first, the Eastern tradition says that Mary did not die first. The official dogma of the church is silent on whether she died first. Alright? So, no point making any conclusion about that, because that's not the point. The point is that she was taken, body and soul, into heaven, regardless of whether she died first. Okay? Pope Pius XII said, you want to know why it's reasonable for us to believe in the assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary? He says, because it's simple. It's a logical consequence of the Immaculate Conception. She's without sin. There's no reason why her body should rot. Death is a consequence of sin having entered the human race. Had we not fallen into sin, death wouldn't have befallen us. We would have lived forever. Mary did not sin. So the assumption is simply a logical conclusion to her being immaculately conceived. That's what Pope Pius XII said. So by tradition, by our sacred tradition, we proclaim that the assumption of Blessed Virgin Mary took place. Now, if you look at all these Marian dogmas that we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, you will notice that all these dogmas, at the end of the day, are not so much about Mary herself, but rather that in saying something about Mary, these dogmas say something of Christ. You need to understand that for us, in the end, everything goes back to Christ. When we say that Mary is Holy Theotokos, the Mother of God, we are actually saying that Jesus is God. When we say that Mary is perpetually virgin and that Mary reserved her whole life in devotion to God, we are saying that Jesus' birth was a miraculous birth and that Jesus was deserving of the total devotion that Mary gave him. It's all about Christ. When we say that Mary is immaculately conceived, we say that God, we are saying that God has this infinite wisdom to be able to provide for the working out of his salvation plan. That he loves us so much that saving us is not his plan B, it's not a sudden thing. He had already planned it to happen. God is love. When we say that we believe in the assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, what are we saying? We are saying that God is a God who fulfills his promises. You know, the assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary is about your future and my future. One day, we will be assumed. And in this hope, we can cling on to. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it beneficial, remember to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and also to hit the bell button in order to receive notification whenever a new video is uploaded onto this channel. Do also check out our online catalog by clicking on the link in the description below.